This is the Fifth Estate winning headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. But we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 4th of June, 2019, and I am 2J.
I am 2M.
And I am Miss K, your host. Again, in case you missed it, this is Winning Headlines. Let's take a look at today's headlines. Daily Nation. Njoroge takes the war to cash felons. The Star, Senate wants spies deployed in every school.
Wow.
And the Standard, CBK governor, we're after money thieves.
Yeah. So the CBK saga continues.
We'll discuss that in a little
moment.
bit. First, let's address this story about spies in every school.
Yeah.
Do they actually say spies?
I think that's a very good place to begin with. Because I think that what the Star has done here, we've accused them of being
Sensational.
a bit of a tabloid newspaper. There's nowhere in the act that it actually mentions spies.
Yes.
Well, we can't accuse them of that. I think that was their entire thesis. When they began with all of the stations underneath the umbrella, it was to be provocative.
Very true.
So when you put a headline like this, everyone will want to buy it. You have a kid who's in school, or you know someone who's a kid in school, you want to know why there's going to be a spy.
Yeah, but if you're going to be trained by the National Counterterrorism Center, all right, you're being taught spy methods, correct?
Yes.
And therefore you're a spy. Right? And if that is the case, this I support. Why? Because it is not, we are not in normal circumstances. We are in abnormal circumstances. If radicalization is going to start from school level, if kids are going to leave schools at lunchtime to go and see some funny guy who will tell them some funny things, then they need to be spied on.
I completely, Miss K, your face.
Yeah.
The thing is, I completely agree with 2M. And I do for two reasons. The first one is, this is an amendment to an already existing bill.
Yes.
That is the Prevention of Terrorism Act, 2012.
Yes.
So this is just an amendment. I think it's section 12D that is just being added to make sure that teachers are aware of what their students are doing.
Yes.
So it's not spying, it's being aware.
Absolutely.
And the second thing, if we look internationally, the US had the Patriot Act right after 9/11, and there was some anthrax attacks that happened. And that gave the government full leeway to spy on their citizens.
Yes.
So while we do not have the same extent or the necessity for those kinds of things, I think it's important for us to get to the root of where some of the radicalization occurs.
Yes.
Okay. There's two things here. I'm going to just say it.
Fire is coming.
First of all, no, I have no fire. I have no fire. Our point here as a media police force is to lift the veil of ignorance from the eyes of the public.
Yes.
So yes, and 2J is right. It is an amendment to an already existing act, the Prevention of Terrorism Act, which is a necessary act. We have terrorism occurrences in our country every so often. So we need to prevent and protect ourselves from them, and it is the government's duty to do that.
Yes.
Two, we have children. I think when you say Senate wants spies deployed in every school, you're not protecting the children, which I am completely against, and which is also against what the amendment itself says. In fact, the amendment has that if you have a child who was radicalized, and you know they were radicalized and they want to come back in, you put in place measures that will protect this child and make sure they're not stigmatized. That's very different from putting spies in the school so we can find out where they're being radicalized and know what's going on.
That is where the headline is putting a curtain and a cloak over your face.
And for that reason, I'm going to say we use our three-part criteria to look at this headline. Is this headline topical or is it repetitive? Is this headline speculative or is it groundbreaking? And finally, is this headline thoughtful or lazy? I say
it is thoughtful and it is topical.
I say it is speculative and lazy.
Let me tell you why it is topical. Last week, Governor of Mandera, Ali Roba, sits down and addresses people and he says, the security agencies in this country have no idea about the level of radicalization happening in our schools. In Northeastern, the mover of this is a Marsabit women rep, senator. She's called Naomi Wako, right? There must be a reason why they're doing this. This thing just doesn't come from a vacuum.
Iyo ni sawa, lakini there's going to be no spies as per that bill.
I feel like we could talk about this for ages, but yes, it is misleading. I will agree with that. All right.
On to more topical issues. Take the war to the cash felons. We are after your money, high thieves. CBK governor says.
Let me tell you.
Let's do them together, though.
Yeah, let's combine them. First and foremost, in matters visuals and optics, that 1,000 bob should have been removed long time ago. It's very ugly. Second,
what a Kenyan.
I do think we have gotten to a place where we need a little bit of shock therapy. We are used to doing things the same way for too long. Now, let's at least see where this thing will take us. Yes, there could be some ramifications. And I think Kenya's economy is resilient enough to handle these shocks. And if you're going to catch some thieves, this is the best way.
Okay, so I think today what's important is that we play devil's advocate. Yesterday we laid out all the reasons why this should happen, but I think today we need to look and say what could go wrong. I don't know if we've touched on those things, and I think I want to challenge you to do the same. Because when we talk about what happened in India, because we're using that as our prime example, manufacturers got hit very hard because there was not enough money in circulation, so their businesses suffered.
Absolutely.
They thought that it would help curb corruption and illegal use of money.
But it didn't.
It didn't happen.
Yes. And I mean, given India, it took about 2 years for them to recover from the economic shocks, that move of withdrawing 500 rupees and 1,000.
Do we have 2 years to wait?
Let me put it this way.
Bearing in mind that we're still recovering from the shock from the Supreme Court by pushing our election that stalled our economy.
But India's actions, what happened in India, was largely because of a gold crunch. I mean, cash crunch. They did not have enough cash in the ATMs, and that's why there were so many lines and long lines that caused the crisis. I do think we have a different scenario here in Kenya.
But let me ask you, if the CJ could nullify an election...
I'm coming to you. You see, Kenya is one of the most financially inclusive countries in Africa. Every 5 kilometer radius you go, you have a financial institution. Actually, our financial inclusion status is over 85%, which means we have the distributive means to be able to get that new local currency into the hands of people. It is not the same as India. In India, you have 20% of the country running a parallel economy to government. All right? People keep money in there. People kept money in their houses in India. That's why it was so difficult to be able to get money in the system.
So my original question was, I wanted to challenge you to be the devil's advocate, to think, how could this go wrong? So right now, there's a case in court where they're going to determine whether or not the likeness of a certain person on the note is legal or illegal. So the question I was asking you, if we could invalidate an entire election, what is not to say that this note could be taken out of circulation even though it is meant to be introduced to the public today?
It could happen. It's gone to court. You people know about it. I think it's gone to the Supreme. Yeah, you're the lawyers. The CJ has appointed a 3-man bench to look at.
He will appoint a 3-man bench
to look into the issues Tata has filed in court. All right, and some of those issues have to do with the image on the currency.
So here's the thing I will say. What 2J is inviting all of us to do is think about Murphy's Law. Anything that could go wrong will go wrong. And for that reason, we shouldn't be as trigger happy as we want to be. We have the same headline or a similar one. We have to pick one. Should we or should we not?
I prefer the Daily Nation over the Standard.
The Daily Nation as well. I think it's more, it has a nicer play. I don't know if
that's a majority win already, so whatever you have to say doesn't
count really.
No, you never know where I was going.
Nation has our winning headline. And on to our next segment, the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Just like the headlines, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to break them down for you. We ask ourselves 3 questions. Is the cartoon humorous or is it dry? Is it satirical or is it pessimistic? And finally, is it effective or just plain lazy?
Yes.
Since the Standard.
Going with the Standard because it's
Gado.
one of my best.
Gado, he has such an interesting and thoughtful mind.
This is beautiful.
It is.
Right? But before you say why it is, let me give you context.
Describe.
Right? It's a Trojan elephant. Is that what it's called?
If it could be, yes. It's the elephant in the room who became a Trojan horse. I
but
don't know.
But it's the room in the elephant.
The room in the elephant. All right? And this elephant has been labeled media. Okay? On top of it are media owners. First in line, a guy controlling the elephant from the top is none other than the prince. And the caricature of UHURU Kenyatta. Second is our Ismaili friend who stays in Canada, the Aga Khan. Third is Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. right? And this is a bold move by Gado because he'll not get his salary next week.
Nope.
I know.
Not even. I was actually shocked that this went to print.
Yes, and last guy is Kalasinga himself, then William Ruto.
Okay. Bill.
So who's entering the room in the elephant?
Yeah, first guy, I don't know. His back is facing us. Second guy, is the Media Council. Third person, I don't know, it's a lady, it's Kenya Union of Journalists. Third
Finally,
is Editors Guild. All right. The guy holding the trunk and tied a rope to the trunk of the elephant could be Mutiambai, because he's a policeman.
Could be. Anyway, it's a representative of
So I
government.
think this is a play on very many things.
Very
The
many
first
levels.
is the elephant in the room, right? Because I think we're saying the media is the elephant in the room. They should be. We're not addressing what they're doing.
Yes.
The second thing is the Trojan horse, which is the mythological story of the Greeks that used a Trojan horse to enter the city of Troy during the Trojan War.
Correct.
So I think...
And that's why you're calling it the Trojan
The Trojan horse, exactly. So now it is known as a strategy that whereby a target invites their foe into a secure area, and they end up having to pay the price for it.
Yes.
But here, Gado has done so many different layers.
It's so layered. I love it.
He has layered it. Media owners have co-opted the watchdog.
Yes.
And the watchdog is entering the room in the elephant. And yet, the state itself has also been co-opted because it is holding. It is
the state has
no,
been
the
co-opted.
state
owns everything.
Oh yes, but then the monopoly of violence, guys who are meant to maintain law and order, have also been co-opted.
No, they are the owners.
They are the owners.
No.
They are guiding.
Now here, this cop is the one who has the duty of pulling the horse into our.
And that's my point. He has been co-opted.
So guys, I want to have my crazy statement of the day.
Go for it.
I think we're 6 months into the year, right?
Yes.
This cartoon for me has beaten the cartoon of the
State
year.
of the Nation.
The State of the Nation. That's my opinion.
Nothing can beat nothing can beat the image of Prophet Award being rained on by women.
I just think it's that perfect level of satire that we keep attributing to Gado.
I do agree with you. You know, by the way, I have to say that I do agree with you. Why? Because the State of the Nation was about everything in general, but I feel like this particular cartoon addresses what we do here. It speaks to
it relates to what we do on this table.
Yes, absolutely.
So I say put it in the parking bay, but I really don't know how anything else can go up against that.
Okay.
Aha, here comes Ndula. Right?
Or is it ozone? I really don't know. Seeing as the imagery is so
the same.
similar.
Remember yesterday's image of Sonko, but then he was fat. But now he's...
It was a close-up.
Yeah, now he looks like kijana mfupi round. He said he looks like...
Okay.
That's what I said.
Describe.
Right? Image of Nairobi Governor Sonko. And he seems to be hurling epithets at a lady who's standing.
I think one important thing we want to highlight, if we can invite our viewers to go to Twitter and check Victor Ndula's handle, he has posted the image that he drew. However, what is in the paper and what he posted on Twitter are not the same. So I'll read the caption of what is viewed on Twitter. The caption here says, larger than life. Sonko in insulting rant over Pasaris.
Yes. I think the context of this is Madaraka Day celebrations, where Esther Pasaris walked out from
while he was giving a speech.
Yeah, they had a little bit of a tiff.
Okay, so what do we say about this cartoon?
I think, unfortunately, without the caption, we have no context.
You kind of do have a context. You know, it's a lady's heels. We know that he has this fight with Pasaris going on, so it's a relief.
But why are Pasaris' legs so huge over here?
That's a good question. I
can't tell you.
I think
I can't tell you.
We're not invested.
Here we are washing money. Ozone.
Ozone.
Oh, these are like Mousetrap.
Did we not have a Mousetrap last week by Ndula?
These patterns are so... I mean...
yes, we actually do have a Mousetrap today.
Front cover on the Daily Nation, drawn by Victor Ndula as well. 2 Mousetraps.
Yes.
Hey.
Ndula, you have to tell us the truth.
And the imagery of the notes.
Will the real ozone please stand up?
Whoa.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, So what do we have on In the Star?
Notes directive. What's the catch?
Yes, so it's a mousetrap. And a bundle of notes have been kept right next there. And on top of the bundle is a karai with water.
With soap.
With soap, soapy water.
Because we're cleaning the money.
Because you're cleaning the money.
Yeah. I don't really like it that much.
I know you hate him for his obviousness.
I don't hate him. I want him to be better.
Okay, you dislike
I'm
the
a
obviousness
teacher.
of his cartoons. And if we put this against the subtlety of the room in the elephant on
Not
the
even
Trojan
close.
horse, I say goodbye.
Ozone is listening to you.
He's mocking me, is what
He's
I
mocking.
think.
Well,
But however, Ozone did win Cartoon of the Day yesterday, but it's because we were overruled.
no, but it was a nice cartoon, I have to say. Those little trinkets that
there were subtleties.
There were subtleties that
So
we
we
can't
have no
deny.
winning.
We do have a winning cartoon.
Oh gosh,
my!
I'm so
How could
sorry.
you forget the room in the
dear.
elephant on the Trojan horse in the? I don't even know. Gado gives us what could possibly be the cartoon of the year. 2M, are you joining us on this one?
No. Until someone beats the Prophet or look.
You know we're 2 versus you.
It's okay.
All right, it's fine.
Cartoon of the year.
Me, I'm a dictatorship in my own.
All right,
In your
so
right.
2M,
In your home.
do we have a final thought?
And now, our final thought. It is inspired by a book entitled Civilization or Barbarism by a man called Cheikh Anta Diop. Did I say right?
I believe so.
Yeah, he's a man from Senegal. And this book should be read against the book written entitled Born in Africa. Is it by a guy called Meredith? Meredith, that one.
Martin Meredith.
Martin Meredith.
My goodness. We shall do this book later this week.
Yes, and my take from this book is this, and I've had this long-held opinion. The first explorers of the world were Africans.
Right?
Yes. Today,
Amen.
I know where I'm from.
Okay, so tell us your thoughts.
And the reason why I agree with this is because in every part of this world, every single continent, the first person who stepped or who set foot in that continent, be it America, be it Australia, be it Europe, be it South Asia, name it, was an African. And he has evidence on this, and his evidence is based on the fossils that were discovered. Right? It was based on the art that was discovered. And this has led me to say that even our education system in this country, we should change it. Because you go to Malindi, they tell us, oh man, that Vasco da Gama discovered Malindi, which is nonsensical. You go to Thompson Falls, there's a man called Thompson. Were we not here before
they came and discovered? Yeah, so this book, of course you've said, Civilization or Barbarism.
Yes.
The subtitle is An Authentic Anthropology.
Yes.
So anthropology, as we know, is the scientific study of humans and human behavior, whether past or present.
Yes.
Okay. So Diop was a Senegalese historian, anthropologist, physicist, politician. He's a very
He's a jack of all trades.
Yeah, he's a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm liking this thing where we look at very well-educated African women, very well-educated African men. I mean, we're great people.
Yes.
So he studied human races' origins and pre-colonial African culture.
Yes.
Okay.
So in this book, he offers a fact-based, and I think that's the most important thing we can highlight here.
Yeah.
Fact-based
Yes.
reinterpretation of the false doctrines put forth by the whites in the 19th century.
Yeah.
So examples that he trumps
Yes.
is that Egypt was a white civilization.
Yes.
That the black people failed to contribute to the collective knowledge of the world, and that Africans are inferior to whites.
Nonsense.
I know, so a lot of these things were things that were plugged into our brains, that it's things that we've carried with us up until this day.
Yeah.
But in this book, he puts these things down one by one and says they are not true.
Yeah.
But one interesting fact about him is that this book and a lot of his other works are based on a PhD that he tried to have passed, if you could say that.
Yes.
But because a lot of his work was controversial, his professors were never willing to go through his work and approve it, because they said that he was either lying, they tried to put down his work, or they said that it wasn't good enough. And I think, Ms. K, you were saying some things about...
Yes, it's true. And this is the thing about Cheikh Anta Diop and his work, is that you cannot separate the work that he did from the man himself. And when you look at the man himself, you have to go back to his education and have to go back to the history of the colonization of Senegal.
Yes.
So the Senegalese were colonized by the French.
Yes.
And the French had assimilation doctrine. So they wanted for you to continually and always be French in your thinking.
French
and
first.
French first, then whatever country you are from second.
Yeah.
So they took upward Africans, Africans of affluent origin, to France, had them study there at the best schools, and then marry French women. So when you came back home, you were always French first.
Yes.
So when Sheikh Anta Diop went, he studied in the best schools under the best people. He had a double PhD, one in nuclear physics, under the son-in-law of Marie Curie. That tells you that his pedigree was really good. And a PhD in history in one of the best universities in France. But here's the thing. So this particular PhD, the one in history, took him 10 years to get validated. So he first started in the year 1951, if I'm to be clear. And so he based his entire thesis on the premise that, as you said, the pharaohs were black. That the history of Africa, in at least for the history of the pharaohs, began in the south of Africa, and that they were Negroid, and that it went up, and that the civilization of the pharaohs, the original pharaohs, began from what are called Nubians, so really dark people who are truly Negroid in their noses, their mouths, their head shapes, and the woolliness of our hair.
Are you looking at 2M's head like that?
Because I'm trying to like see what Caucasian looks and how woolly his hair is as I say this. And then that was the history of the pharaohs of the pyramids. As you look at our woolly hair, black people rule. Anyway, this thesis got rejected, and he tried to have it submitted again 2 more times. But each time they rejected it. So what he did is that he stopped trying for a while, trying to validate his thinking here, and started publishing books based on his thesis. And that's how he published the books that he had. He began with one called African Origin of Civilization: The History of Africa. Then this book that we're reviewing today is actually the final book that he published ever. This is a culmination of all the research work that he did. And you should know that he was never allowed to teach in his homeland of Senegal. The French continued their supremacy and their stamp on his inability to share his findings.
I think that would make sense, because if in Senegal they're trying to create this environment where the blacks are inferior to the whites, and you should be French first, Senegalese second, and you have this man who's a proponent of different African thought, of course you'd want to shut him up. But I think it's amazing that now we can look back upon this and we can see that there's so much right in what he said. And that's why I was saying this is fact-based reinterpretation.
In fact, what he says, what he does actually, and he says this in the beginning of the book, is that he's trying to make the idea of Black Egypt an operational scientific concept. He's trying to make us understand that the history of all humanity, the history of me and you, the history of the Jewish man, the history of the Italian, the
history
UK,
of the Son of God,
of the Son of God is a history of black people.
That is where I was going.
Yes, go
that
there.
Is where I was going. So let me ask you, because you go to church more than I do.
Gosh.
Jesus is King of the Jews, correct?
He's King of the world.
King of the world. But he's referred to as the King of the Jews.
That was a derogatory term, by the way, that was put on his cross at the time of his
either way, that's how it's been reviewed. Okay, in my thinking, if Jesus was King of the Jews, he must have been black, correct? Just go with it, and then I'll help you. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I want to quote 2 sources. The first source is Hitler.
All right, to him.
Okay.
Hitler says that the guys who showed up in Germany and called themselves Jews were not actually Jews, because the Jews he knows are black. Second, the person I also want to quote is former Egyptian president Abdel Nasser, and he says, or rather he said, that the people who left, that there was a crisis, the people who left
black
Israel,
they left
black, but when they came back
white.
So where's your point?
And then I have another one.
Okay.
So I was reading some stuff about the pyramids of Egypt, and did you guys know that the first pyramids to have been built were built 2000 before the Egyptians built their pyramids, and they were built in a place in Sudan, and this place was full of Nubians, the ones you have spoken about with long heads.
No, I said Negroid features.
Negroid features, sorry. Strong noses, black gums, big lips, big
woolly
hair, white eyes, and everything. Point is, our history, in my view, has been distorted.
Most definitely.
If you go to all the cathedrals in this Nairobi of ours, the stained glass, Jesus is white. The people around him are white. In fact, in Africans' homes, the artifacts you find of Jesus and the Christian things, everybody is white.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the, like, maybe the most important thing that we would want to highlight, that there's a part of our history that has been taken away from us.
Yes.
So in this book, he spends a lot of time, or in his writings, he spends a lot of time talking about how the Egyptians came from Egyptians.
Yeah.
Their heritage originated from Black Africa.
Yes.
So if you go to countries in the West, if you go to the Louvre in Paris,
Yes.
you have the Egyptian statues there with their noses
Yes.
chopped off, because they were trying to distort the fact that they were black, not
In
white.
origin,
Right?
yes.
And the reason why historians tried to separate Egypt from, they called it proper Africa and the rest of us, is because they wanted us to believe that there is no way Africans could have had the intellect to develop math, for example. Math originates from Africa.
Yes.
There's no way we had the intelligence to create pyramids, which
Yes.
to this day, they cannot figure out how they were built.
Absolutely.
So Egypt is a part of Africa.
No, I agree with you. I mean, how did the Aboriginals get to Canada and to Australia?
Yeah.
How did we get to Italy? How did they get to China? We must have created innovations at that point in time that allowed us to get there. And we should celebrate ourselves as the beginning, the originators of those kind of innovations. Columbus did not show up in a ship because it was designed by his people. He must have seen it elsewhere and copied it.
I will say one last thing as I bring this episode to a close. If there's anything we want to do this week is to reignite your Africanness and your thinking of yourself as not just a member of global history, but as a member of the history of this particular race in which we find ourselves.
Yeah.
And Chekata Diop was a pioneer in that thought and a person who made it scientific and made it believable. In 1974, he managed to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt, remember he was a scientist first, that the Egyptians were black people by obtaining pigment from Egyptian mummies, but not in Egypt, because all of his requests to get pigments in Egypt were refused, but from Ramses II, who resides in the museums in France. So he was able to prove that fact and note that. But he says a more important thing. He says that, and I quote, "The negation of the history and intellectual accomplishments of black Africans was cultural, mental murder, which preceded and paved the way for their genocide here in Africa and there in the world." So if there's anything I want you guys to take away is what he says. He says that cultural identity is the key to understanding a people. And if we are to understand who we are as Africans, we have to know where we came from, and that takes three things. It takes us knowing our history, takes us knowing and understanding our language, which is the expression, expression of
oneself,
ourselves and our collective identity as Africans. And it also takes what he calls a psychic factor. So that's your knowledge that you are black, that you are connected to the history of everyone in the world, that mitochondrial Eve comes from Turkana, that ancient Greek was founded on ancient African language. So take that fact home.
And Jesus was
and
African.
know this. If you learn a false history, then it leads to stagnation. And what leads to stagnation? If your history is erased, then you think that the black life is not worth living, and that is what leads to you being a barbarian against your own race. We had a new headline from the Daily Nation. We had winning cartoon of the year replacement from Gado of the Standard. Eid Mubarak. See you, I think, tomorrow. Have a great day.